Welcome back to the Montana Real Estate Channel, where we're going to go through various communities in Montana and tell you about the real estate there, the culture, some of the highlights, and some of the landmarks. Today, we're in Kalispell, Montana, and as we tour the various neighborhoods of Kalispell, I'll give you some highlights about the area. And today, right now, we're starting at Conrad Mansion, and we'll take a little quick tour around it in just a moment. But if this is the first time to the Montana Real Estate Channel, and you want to make sure that you get all the information about Montana real estate, be sure to tap that logo down on the right-hand side of your screen and subscribe so that you're in the know when we put out a new video about a community in Western Montana. I'm Craig Cyphers, and I work with my daughter, Erica Cyphers, at Cyphers Family Real Estate. We've been helping folks transition into Montana since 1966. We'd love to be a resource for you. All the information you need to get a hold of us is in the description below. So let's do this. Let's start out at the Conrad Mansion, and then we'll go see some neighborhoods around the Kalispell area in northwest Montana.
Charles Conrad came to Montana from his native Virginia in 1868 at the age of 18, along with his brother William. He began working at I.G. Baker Company, based in Fort Benton, and the brothers eventually bought the business and expanded it over the years and ventured into the banking business in 1892. Over the years, Conrad traveled into the Flathead to hunt and eventually purchased a 72-acre parcel. And in 1895, they built this early Norman-designed home. The architect was Kirkland Cutter from Spokane, and the home features 23 bedrooms, 4 native stone chimneys, and conveniences. It was built for electricity before electricity was even in the valley. The home was known as the Conrad House, and the mansion was donated to the city of Kalispell in 1975 by Charles' youngest daughter, Alicia Conrad Campbell. Charles Conrad and his brother William made their money on the Missouri River at Fort Benton. That was the place where everyone went when they were coming from St. Louis. And this is a fascinating story. Here we are coming into Kalispell from the south. Highway 93 turns into Main Street, which splits right in the middle of the lanes of traffic, and it's the Flathead County Courthouse. It's pretty hard to miss. Some of the older homes on either side of the street that were built in the 1930s have become homes for various businesses. Kalispell is the county seat of Flathead County, with a population of 24,558 according to the 2020 census. It has an elevation of 2,956 feet, and the Flathead Valley was likely first explored by Hudson Bay surveyor Peter Fildler. In 1864, a short-lived town called Ashley was founded near present-day Kalispell. And 3 years later, a little burg called Demersville was founded. But when the Great Northern Railroad bypassed Demersville and the residents fled to the new town of Kalispell, there was no more Demersville. It was no surprise that 3 board members of the Great Northern Railroad and Charles Conrad formed the Kalispell Townsite Company, and taking its name from the Salish language meaning flat land above the lake. The town site was platted, and lots began to being sold to the city in 1892. That was pretty much the end of Demersville. Kalispell's Main Street is lined with historic buildings dating back to the turn of the century. And Kalispell is located 31 miles from Glacier National Park and 22 miles from Hungry Horse Dam. It has a 150-bed hospital at Logan Health, with quick access to 2 terrific ski areas at Blacktail Mountain and Whitefish Mountain. Kalispell is really quite an astounding place between Big Fork and Whitefish. This is an area of the originally platted Kalispell. This is a beautiful older neighborhood This home on the corner that we just saw was an example built in 1900. And when we turn the corner here, this home is on the National Register. It was built in 1896. It was 2,450 square feet of living area. Some of the others here were more modern, built in 1930. Between so many of these beautiful homes built in the 1890s, there's also a duplex built in 1957. Here's a home coming up built in 1903 that we're going to see here momentarily. And then across the street, a beautiful home completed in 1910. The pink monster that we were coming up on here was last sold in July of 2008. It was listed as having 8,300 square feet and sold for less than $700,000. The public record says it was built in 1908. Now, this is not from the Conrad Mansion. We traveled through an older portion of Kalispell called the Duncan Edition. And the lots here have been split up and really can range in a fair bit in size from a blue home that was built in 1920. It was a 426 basement, 874 on the main, 347 on the second level for 2,221 square feet. And finished space, there was a little 620 square foot, 2-bed, 1-bath home in this area that closed in January of 2024 for roughly $280,000, up to 510 for a 2,400 square foot home that was built in 1954. This is an older section of Kalispell. The lots are approximately 7,000 feet. That bungalow right there sold in June of 2020 for something less than $250,000. Today it would be fetching something on the order of 50% more. Then we head into a business district here. There's an office building that was built in 1988. Going north on US Highway 93, we pass more businesses, including a major car wash. We have Glacier Bank in this business area, an organic grocery store, along with a Mexican restaurant, and then a number of professional buildings. And then we turn on to Indian Trail Road, where we see an allergy and asthma center. And as we drive down here, we'll see a number of multifamily and duplex units that were built in the late 1970s, and a few scattered single-family residences. And then we'll turn on to Harrison Boulevard. And this is Parkview Terrace Edition. And many of these lots are around 7,000 to 8,000 square feet. And we see a mix of duplexes as well as single-family homes. Most were built in the early 1970s in this section of Kalispell, but there are some newer homes. Single-family home in here sold in this neighborhood in November of 2023. It was built in 1991. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath home, 1,652 square feet, and sold for $430,000, with the sellers providing the buyers with $10,000 to put towards their closing costs. The Hawthorne West townhomes built in 1979, they are 3-bed, 2-bath units, 1,364 square feet. Last one sold in here in July of 2023 for $335,000. And this is an area between Highway 93 alternate and Highway 93 and north of US Highway 2. There are single-level duplexes and townhomes that were built in 1987. They're 836 square feet with a single-car garage, 2-bed, 1-bath. This area began being developed in the early 1970s. This is west of Kalispell in the rural area off Morning View Drive. These homes are on tracts between 5 and 3¼ acres and were built between 2001 and 2020. And they range in size between roughly 2,600 square feet up to nearly 3,700 square feet. And in the background, we have the Lazy R&R Ranch Supply and Triple Take Arena. Along 3 Mile Road, across from higher density subdivisions, are these tracts from roughly 1-acre tracts to nearly 10-acre tracts. These homes were built from 1910 to 1965. This area has a variety of tri-levels. In 1967, there was one that had a total of 2,987 square feet, 4 beds and 3 3/4 baths on 7,900 square feet. And it sold in October of 2023 for less than $600,000, $15,000 in seller concessions. This is the Northridge Heights subdivision. Homes were built here from 1973 to 1980, but most were completed about 1976. Many of these bi-level and tri-level homes, and then once we get here past Crestview, move into Sunset Edition. Some of these homes were completed in the early 1960s. This very contemporary home, that blue was perched up over there, was built in 1986 and has 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, 3,447 square feet, a little over a third of an acre, and has an assessed value in the mid-700s. This portion of Sunset Subdivision was built out in the mid-1970s, and the homes in here go from $425,000 up to $780,000 for a 2,800 square foot, 4-bed, 2 3/4 bath home. We have the Flathead Community College, and it's part of the University of Montana system. The total enrollment is about 2,000 with roughly 700 full-time students. Niche.com says it's closer to 600 students. Nursing is its primary focus, or healthcare, but there are a variety of course studies available. It was originally established in 1967 and is now very modern, a beautiful 66-acre campus. We're now driving through Country View Estates. This is one of the best subdivisions in Kalispell. Interestingly enough, most of these homes have sold in the mid-500,000 range. And then on the other side of the subdivision, they have access to the Stillwater River, and it's absolutely beautiful. And there was a home here that closed in February of 2024 for $1.1 million, and it was 2,730 square feet on roughly a half acre, and it had 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and it was on the market for less than 50 days. So this is a really great area of Kalispell, and our next stop is going to be an area called Greenbrier. This Greenbrier is an area that is just northwest of downtown Kalispell, a subdivision that was platted in about 1994, and homes here sit on lots ranging from 7,500 to 10,000 square feet. And you have a mix of ranch style and split level homes. There was a ranch style home here that closed in November of 2023 for approximately $430,000, and the sellers provided $10,000 in concession to the buyer to buy down the interest rate, and it was a 1,200 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath home. And in the Greenbrier, homes do vary in size. There's a 3,000 square foot home that sold in here for 600 baths. So you've got a little bit of a mix in this area just northwest of Kalispell. Our next area that we're going to is called Aspen Noel. And now this development, these homes sit on just about an acre and were built between 2003 and 2011. They range in size from about 2,500 square feet up to about 4,000 square feet, and they will be anywhere from 3-bed, 2-bath up to a 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom home. The last home that sold in this neighborhood was a 2,538 square foot 4-bed, 3-bath home. It was listed for $785,000 and closed at $735,000, right about 94% of ask. 102 days on the market, and that closed back in October of 2022. So this is Aspen Noel. Kalispell has 3 high schools. You have Flathead High, Glacier, and Linderman Learning Center. And you also have the Kalispell Middle School, which you will see here in a second, and they have 1,045 students in grades 6 through 8, with a student-teacher ratio of 14:1. Silverbrook Estates is just out of the northern outskirts of Kalispell along Highway 93 on the way to Whitefish. This is an example of a relatively new development in the ever-expanding housing market of Kalispell. So Kalispell is and has been one of the, if not the fastest growing communities of its size in the country. This particular development started in July of 2007, and the overall timing could not have been worse, as it was just before the market really went hard south. The fact the Montana real estate market began to soften by 2007, and it was a complete free-for-all and fall by 2008. The recovery did not begin until 2013, but it has been burning up over a decade, and we probably need to take a breath. There have been 16 sales in the last year in Silverbrook Estates, ranging from a 1,200 square foot home that sold for around $540,000 to a 3,400 square foot home that sold for $1.3 million. And interestingly, the first homes here were not built in this subdivision until 2010. At the time, they were relatively small homes, around 1,500 square feet. They sold between $200,000 and $225,000. There are homes that were built here in 2023, but we didn't see any new homes being built at this time. We hope you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the Montana Real Estate channel, and we'll check you on the next video. Cypher's Family Real Estate since 1966.